Hello everyone, and welcome to my Beyond the Gates official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Beyond the Gates, the revelation that Lynette finally unleashes sends seismic shockwaves through Fairmont Crest, because in a moment charged with years of buried pain, half-truths, and carefully guarded lies, Lynette stands in the center of the room and declares that Peaches is not merely a woman from her past, not merely a mysterious figure circling the edges of her life, but her mother. A truth so devastating in its emotional weight that it leaves Hayley utterly speechless and the rest of the characters scrambling to process the implications, as the camera lingers on Lynette's trembling hands and determined eyes, revealing that this confession has been building inside her for decades, suffocating her every time she tried to reinvent herself or outrun the shadow of where she came from, because Peaches, long dismissed by Fairmont Crest's elite as unreliable, chaotic, or unimportant, suddenly becomes the missing piece in a puzzle that redefines Lynette's entire identity, and the writers lean into the rawness of the moment by letting the silence stretch just long enough for every character's face to betray their private calculations, especially Hayley's, whose confidence visibly crumbles as she realizes this revelation dismantles the power she thought she held over Lynette, since Hayley has spent years weaponizing Lynette's past, manipulating rumors, half-truths, and insinuations to paint herself as superior, untouchable, and morally above reproach, only to find that Lynette's truth is far more complex and far more human than anything Hayley ever imagined, because Peaches is not simply a liability, but a living testament to survival, sacrifice, and the brutal choices women are forced to make when the world offers them no safety net. And as Lynette speaks, her voice steady but emotionally cracked, she recounts how Peaches gave birth to her under circumstances steeped in fear and desperation, how she loved her fiercely but was pushed out of her life by systems that favored money, respectability, and silence over compassion, and how Lynette was raised to believe that forgetting her mother was the price of belonging, a lie that haunted her through every relationship, every ambition, and every moment she tried to convince herself she was free, while Peaches, standing quietly off to the side, absorbs the impact of her daughter's words with tear-filled eyes, her usual bravado stripped away to reveal a woman who has carried the pain of being erased from her child's life while still loving her from afar, and this dynamic alone reframes countless past scenes, from Peaches' erratic behavior to her persistent presence near Lynette, now revealed not as intrusion but as maternal instinct battling years of forced distance, and Hayley, confronted with this truth, is rendered powerless because her usual tactics, sharp remarks, calculated smiles, and emotional manipulation fail her entirely in the face of something so deeply personal and undeniably real. As the audience watches her struggle to find a response, her mouth opening and closing without sound, her eyes darting between Lynette and Peaches as she realizes that this revelation exposes her own cruelty because she mocked Peaches, dismissed her, and used her as a pawn without ever understanding the bond she was exploiting. And the episode brilliantly underscores this irony by intercutting flashbacks of Hayley's previous schemes with Lynette's present-day confession, highlighting how Hayley's need for control blinded her to the humanity of the people she hurt, while Lynette, liberated by finally speaking the truth, grows visibly stronger with each word, explaining how she spent her life trying to be acceptable in a world that demanded she bury her origins, how she learned to smile through insults, to stay silent when her past was questioned, and to let others define her narrative because it felt safer than reclaiming it herself, until now, when she realizes that the cost of silence is greater than the fear of exposure, and this moment does not exist in isolation, because its ripple effects extend outward, threatening to unravel multiple storylines at once, from the way Fairmont Crest's social hierarchy will now be forced to reckon with its hypocrisy, to the way characters who align themselves with Hayley for protection or advantage will begin to question their loyalties, as the revelation of Peach's maternity also raises unsettling questions about who knew the truth and kept it hidden, who benefited from Lynette's shame, and how many other secrets are buried beneath the polished surface of the community, and the writing smartly allows the emotional fallout to unfold organically rather than rushing to immediate confrontations. As Peaches finally speaks, her voice soft but resolute, acknowledging her mistakes without apology, admitting she was not perfect, but insisting she never stopped loving her daughter, and this admission shatters the simplistic narratives that Fairmont Crest prefers, because it refuses to categorize Peaches as either villain or saint, instead presenting her as a complex woman shaped by circumstance, survival, and love, which in turn forces the other characters to confront their own biases, especially those who pride themselves on moral superiority while benefiting from privilege and secrecy, and Hayley's silence becomes increasingly unbearable because for the first time, she is not controlling the narrative, not setting the terms of the conversation, not deciding who is worthy of compassion, and this loss of control is devastating to her, revealing cracks in her carefully constructed persona as she realizes that Lynette's truth is something she cannot spin, dismiss, or weaponize without exposing herself as cruel and small. And the episode heightens this tension by allowing Lynette to address Hayley directly, not with anger but with clarity, telling her that every insult, every manipulation, every attempt to shame her now means nothing because the truth belongs to Lynette alone, and reclaiming it has stripped Hayley of her power, a declaration that resonates far beyond their personal rivalry and speaks to the broader themes of the show about identity, agency, and the cost of silence. As the camera cuts to reactions around the room, some sympathetic, some stunned, some calculating, hinting at alliances that may fracture and new conflicts that will inevitably arise, because secrets like this do not simply end stories, they begin them, and the revelation of Peaches as Lynette's mother also casts new light on past mysteries, including Peaches' persistent warnings, her emotional volatility, and her deep resentment towards certain members of Fairmont Crest's elite, now understood not as random hostility, but as the accumulated anger of a woman who watched her child be absorbed into a world that rejected her. And this context deepens the emotional stakes of future episodes, because Peaches is no longer an outsider, but a mother reclaiming her place in her daughter's life, a development that threatens those who relied on Lynette's isolation and vulnerability, while simultaneously offering Lynette a chance at healing she never believed possible. And the brilliance of the episode lies in its refusal to frame the revelation as a neat resolution, because even as Lynette feels empowered, the pain of lost time lingers, the wounds of separation remain raw, and the consequences of speaking the truth are still unfolding, particularly as whispers begin to spread through Fairmont Crest, challenging its residents to decide whether they will respond with empathy or cruelty, and Hayley's stunned silence becomes the episode's final, haunting image, a visual metaphor for the collapse of her authority as she stands frozen, stripped of her words, forced to confront the reality that Lynette's story is no longer hers to manipulate, and as the screen fades to black, the audience is left with the unmistakable sense that Beyond the Gates has crossed a point of no return, because the revelation that Peaches is Lynette's mother does not simply shock. It redefines relationships, exposes hypocrisy, and sets the stage for a reckoning that will reverberate through Fairmont Crest for weeks to come, proving once again that the most powerful twists in American television are not just about secrets revealed, but about the courage it takes to finally tell the truth. The echo of Lynette's confession hangs heavy in the air. The atmosphere in Fairmont Crest becomes almost suffocating, with every character caught in a moment of cognitive dissonance, forced to recalibrate everything they thought they knew about Lynette, Peaches, and the delicate web of secrets they've all navigated for years. Because suddenly the dynamics of power, loyalty, and perception shift dramatically, and the audience can feel the tension in every tight-lipped glance, every subtle hesitation, and every calculated pause, as the show deliberately stretches the moment, making viewers painfully aware that this is not just a family revelation, it is a societal reckoning within the microcosm of Fairmont Crest, where appearances are meticulously curated and any crack in the facade is exploited mercilessly, and the writers brilliantly heighten the suspense by cutting between characters who react in vastly different ways. Some, like certain long-time residents, mask their shock with practiced civility, their eyes flicking with suspicion as they consider the ramifications for their own carefully constructed reputations. Others, particularly those who have long sympathized with Lynette or resented Hayley, visibly swell with vindication, a sense of justice mingling with the emotional release of finally seeing the truth acknowledged, while Peaches, usually volatile and unpredictable, reveals a new layer of composure and quiet pride, her every word measured, as though she has rehearsed this moment in her mind for decades. And yet, even she cannot fully suppress the swell of emotion that comes from being publicly recognized as the mother of the daughter she once had to relinquish to the pressures of a world unwilling to accommodate love over social convention. Hayley's silence, meanwhile, is deafening, a stark visual and narrative device the show employs to convey the collapse of her control, because she has always thrived in a world where information is currency, where gossip, manipulation, and innuendo allow her to dominate conversations and dictate outcomes. And yet here, faced with Lynette's unassailable truth, she realizes that none of her usual tools, the snide remarks, the carefully timed interventions, the passive-aggressive social maneuvers, can reclaim authority over a narrative she no longer owns, and this creates an internal storm within Hayley, whose expressions shift from disbelief to panic, then to a simmering, almost imperceptible rage, hinting at the lengths she may go to regain control, which in turn sets up a dramatic tension that will ripple through upcoming episodes. Because audiences know that Hayley's inability to immediately respond is not resignation, but a pause before the inevitable, and the camera lingers on her face in a masterful display of visual storytelling, showing her calculating mind at work even in the absence of words, making viewers simultaneously fear and anticipate her next move. Meanwhile, Lynette herself undergoes a transformation in real time, as the act of revealing Peaches as her mother seems to lift a weight she has carried silently for decades, and the show underscores this by contrasting her newfound confidence and openness with the hesitant, sometimes performative behavior she displayed in previous episodes, illustrating that speaking the truth is not merely cathartic, but empowering, and it shifts her relationships with other characters immediately. Allies who previously doubted her now see her as formidable, an individual capable of reclaiming her own narrative, while those who tried to manipulate her, particularly Hayley, are forced to confront the futility of their schemes, as the revelation exposes cracks in their power structures that cannot be easily mended. The writers also weave in subtle hints that Peach's story has layers yet untold, suggesting that her past choices, her mysterious absences, and her occasionally erratic behavior were not merely personal flaws, but consequences of survival in a world stacked against her, and this revelation reframes the audience's understanding of previous conflicts, highlighting that Fairmont Crest is a place where morality is relative, survival often dictates decisions, and the consequences of secrecy are far-reaching, because every character has been shaped, for better or worse, by the hidden truths of others, and now that Lynette has brought one of the most crucial secrets into the open, the ripple effects are unstoppable, challenging the social order and personal alliances alike. The narrative pacing is deliberately meticulous. After Lynette's revelation, the camera shifts to close-ups of other key figures in the room, capturing micro-reactions, eyes widening, lips tightening, subtle nods of recognition, furrowed brows, each reaction layered with potential motivations, alliances, and conflicts, and the audience is left to decipher these visual cues, building a sense of suspense and anticipation that is both emotionally and psychologically engaging. The tension between Lynette and Hayley becomes almost tangible, a battle of narratives rather than physical confrontation, as Lynette's calm but resolute demeanor forces Hayley to confront not just the truth about Peaches, but the uncomfortable reality that her own influence and control may be fleeting when faced with the undeniable authenticity of human connection and maternal truth. Adding another dimension to the drama, the episode employs flashbacks and symbolic imagery to deepen the impact, Scenes of a young Lynette longing for maternal warmth are intercut with present-day shots of Peaches standing silently, watching her daughter reclaim her voice, visually reinforcing the passage of time, the cost of absence, and the enduring bond between mother and child, even when obscured by circumstance, societal expectation, or deliberate separation, and these visual cues underscore the thematic richness of the episode, demonstrating that Beyond the Gates thrives not merely on sensational revelations, but on the profound emotional truths that underlie its storylines. The episode also cleverly sets up multiple narrative threads for future episodes. Questions emerge about Peach's role in past intrigues, the impact of this revelation on Lynette's friendships and romantic entanglements, and the looming threat of Hayley's calculated retaliation, which promises to keep viewers on edge as the show masterfully balances the personal and the political, the intimate and the public, ensuring that the fallout of this revelation will reverberate across multiple storylines, maintaining suspense while deepening character development and signaling that the consequences of Lynette's declaration will shape the course of Fairmont Crest for weeks to come. In the final moments of the episode, the camera lingers on Lynette and Peaches standing side by side, a visual statement of reclaimed identity, familial bonds, and the enduring power of truth, while Hayley, isolated and powerless, stares at them, a silent acknowledgement that her reign over narrative and perception has been challenged, and as the screen fades to black, the audience is left with a profound sense of anticipation, understanding that while secrets have been revealed, the story is far from over, and that Beyond the Gates has once again proven that its strength lies not just in shocking twists, but in the emotional resonance, intricate character dynamics, and the delicate unraveling of lies that define the human experience within the gilded, high-stakes world of Fairmont Crest. The room in Fairmont Crest, usually polished and meticulously curated to convey wealth, order, and social control, suddenly feels impossibly small, suffused with the electric tension of a revelation that no one saw coming, as Lynette's words, "Peaches is my mother," hang suspended in the air like an unbreakable cord, reverberating through the hearts and minds of every character present, forcing them to reevaluate everything they believed about Lynette, Peaches, and even themselves, because this is not a mere plot twist, but a seismic upheaval of personal history, social hierarchy, and emotional investment. And the episode immediately capitalizes on the moment by giving each character space to react in ways that reveal their core motivations. Hayley, long accustomed to controlling the narrative through subtle manipulations, crafted rumors, and public shaming, is rendered completely unmoored, her usual arsenal of biting remarks and sardonic laughter useless against the raw, unassailable truth, and the camera lingers on her frozen face, the slightest twitch of her eye or quiver of her lip betraying a storm of disbelief, panic, and simmering anger, a masterclass in visual storytelling, as viewers watch her struggle with the simultaneous realization that she can no longer dominate the conversation and that Lynette's newfound empowerment threatens to dismantle her carefully constructed influence over Fairmont Crest's social dynamics. Meanwhile, Peaches, who has long been perceived by many as unpredictable, intrusive, or even unstable, is revealed in a new light, her years of absence, her erratic interventions, and her moments of visible frustration now contextualized as the desperate efforts of a mother who never stopped caring, a woman forced to navigate a world that punished love and rewarded appearances, and as she stands silently beside Lynette, the weight of their shared history palpable, the audience senses the culmination of decades of unspoken emotion, the ache of separation, the resilience required to survive societal judgment, and the tentative hope of reconciliation, all conveyed without a single word being exchanged, which speaks volumes about the show's sophisticated approach to character-driven storytelling. Lynette herself transforms visibly during the scene, her posture straightening, her hands ceasing their trembling, and her eyes burning with a quiet determination, because in this moment she is no longer a passive participant in the life she has been forced to navigate. She is reclaiming the narrative, taking ownership of her past, and asserting control over her identity in a way that no one, not Hayley, Not the judgmental elites of Fairmont Crest, not even herself, has allowed her to do until now. And the audience feels the gravity of this empowerment because the writers interweave subtle cues of vulnerability and strength, a flicker of a smile, a tear threatening to fall but restrained, a measured tone of voice that balances raw honesty with dignified composure, signaling that Lynette's truth is both a personal catharsis and a deliberate act of defiance against a society that has systematically tried to erase her origins.